I graduated from high school in 1972 under circumstances that made me feel like an outsider. My family had moved my senior year from a large suburb just south of Chicago, where my high school theater department rented costumes from New York, to a small rural community in the Pacific Northwest. At my new school, boys still rolled up their white t-shirts to tuck cigarettes in the sleeves, and many of the girls were engaged before graduation. I barely knew anyone outside of my drama class. I dreamed of becoming a flight attendant, and after graduation, I was accepted into a program at what was then called Dixie College in St. George, Utah. But when I told my parents, I was met with cold rejection. "And how are you planning on paying for this?" they asked. When I admitted that I thought that they would help, my mother and my biological father both flatly refused. My father, in fact, told me, "I think I've paid enough in child support over the last few years." At 18, I realized no one was going to help me build the life that I wanted. I had to become independent. I walked into a Navy recruiting office and enlisted. In January of 1973, I flew to Pensacola, Florida, and began basic training. My recruiter, however, was honest and ensured that my schooling was a part of my contract, and that led to training in photography, A, B, and C school. So after boot camp in Pensacola, Florida, I graduated from photography school and received orders to Japan, which was my first choice. When I arrived, I was one of only a handful of women on the base. The Navy had just built a brand new women's barracks, and because there were only a few of us, we each pretty much had our own room. In the photography lab, I was the only woman, and the men I worked with were respectful and funny, and for a time, I felt valued. But that changed when a new chief petty officer arrived to lead the lab. Unlike his predecessor, this man was unmarried and quickly began daily harassment, sexual comments, pressure to comply, and retaliation when I refused. When performance review time came, I received my first ever negative evaluation. And I fought back. I went before the review board and stated clearly the only reason for this review was that I refused Chief Kelly's advances. The board agreed and ordered him to rewrite my evaluation. That was my first encounter with what we now call sexual harassment, a term formally recognized only after the 1977 Supreme Court case Barnes versus Train, and later defined in Meritor Savings Bank versus Vinson in 1986 as a violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. At the time, I only knew it as an abuse of power. Years later, I would encounter the same dynamics in another setting, my church. I was given leadership roles in youth and women's organizations, but never real authority. Male church leaders always had the final say, and when I attempted to act decisively, I was told to go back and listen to the men. And sometimes the pushback came indirectly through the wives of male leaders who reported the actions that they didn't like to their husbands. In one instance, a counselor of mine in a children's program who was married to a bishopric member undermined me by running to her husband, who didn't do what she thought I should be doing, and the bishop pressured either me to change or he would have to release me. In another, a woman disrupted my organizational meetings with loud gossip from the front row, whispering and loudly making comments. And when I asked her stake president husband to intervene, he shrugged, "That's your problem." The message was the same as it had been in the Navy. Women could do the work, but ultimate power remained in the hands of men. This is why I was so disturbed to watch Fox News host Pete Hegseth berate U.S. military leaders during a congressional hearing. His rant was not about strength, it was about insecurity. I saw the same behavior in him that I once saw in Chief Kelly. A man angry at being held accountable, a man lashing out at the very reforms designed to protect young recruits from harassment and hazing. To applaud such behavior is to undo decades of progress. Since the 1991 tailhook scandal, the military has slowly, though imperfectly, moved toward acknowledging and addressing sexual harassment and assault. The Pentagon reports that nearly 20,000 service members experienced sexual assault in 2022 alone, with women disproportionately affected. Rolling back protections is not tough leadership, it is regression. From the Navy to the church to our national politics, I have seen patriarchy at work. It operates through intimidation, dismissal, and the insistence that men must have the final word. But here is the truth. Institutions are stronger, not weaker, when women are fully empowered. The data are clear. Companies with more women in leadership roles perform better financially. Peace agreements are more durable when women are at the negotiating table. Nations with higher levels of gender equality are more secure and prosperous. So if America wants to rise, if we want a nation filled with love, compassion, and prosperity, we need to do more than listen to women. We need to put women in charge. I have lived the consequences of ignoring women's voices in the military, in the church, and now in our government. So my message is simple. Dismiss us at your peril. The future of this country depends on whether we finally trust women with real authority.